Hey guys, what's up? My name is Art and welcome back to another video. I've been thinking about this video for a while and I didn't know exactly how to go about doing it. But anyway, the question is, why do I collect? Whether it's comic books or action figures, why do I collect? Is there anything else I could be spending my money on? Possibly, yes. There's a lot of things I could spend my money on. But why on these things? Well, why does anybody collect what they do? Why does a man watch sports? Can anybody actually explain to me why a man watches sports? Besides, that's what men do. Why? Why do men play sports? Because that shows you how much of a man you are. That's a manly activity. Says who? And the problem is, no one has a real definite answer on that. But there is an answer of why people collect things. For example, some people collect memorabilia. I had people who I knew people who collected sports memorabilia. Signed, they go to all the autograph signings for sports stars. Get their autograph, football signed, basketball signed, baseball signed. Get pictures with them. Why do people do that? I collect autographs myself. You see it on this channel, especially when I go to a con. I have some kind of autograph or something. I collect a lot of wrestling autographs, but that's a different story. Every now and then, some media stars, and maybe this year coming up in the next couple months, I'll get some media stars. Hopefully. But why do I collect? To start it off on this, I was born in the early 70s. Now, for some of you might understand what that time was like, and it was a very tough time. And so, my parents was like, I want to give my child things that I could not get. Like, for example, my parents didn't have a lot of toys when they were growing up. So they said, I want my kids to have a childhood. And to tell you the truth, yeah, I did have a lot of toys. Lots of toys. So if you go to like a toy show, like some of the early some of the early toys you've seen, I probably had that at one point or another. There was one show that I liked called $6 Million Man. I had the actual $6 Million Man figure. I did. And it had like a rocket ship with it, and I had played with that forever. I used to have some Buck Rogers of the 25th Century figures. The movie Tron, they had figures. I had some of those. The Black Hole, I had some of those figures. I had stuff, of course, naturally had Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Centurions, actually, Sectors I had as well. Of course, He-Man. Playing all the hits. I didn't have any wrestling. That's the hilarious part. I didn't have any wrestling toys, but I had other stuff as well. But my childhood was filled. I always read comic books because that's how I learned how to read. I learned how to read by reading comics. My dad was kind of unemployed a lot of the times, and we used to walk up to the store, the pharmacy, and there's the spinner rack. and I pick up a Spider-Man book. My first Spider-Man book, I believe, my first Spider-Man book was Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man number 5 or number 6 that I can actually remember. And I'd take it home and my dad would read it to me. And then I learned how to read that way. He's like, if I'm gonna buy you this, you're gonna have to learn how to read it. Now, a 5-year-old reading a comic book, that's not a simple like Walt Disney or Hop on Pop. I had, of course, Dr. Seuss books and stuff like that. But if I'm gonna buy you these, you're gonna have to learn how to read them, and I did. So that's one of my love of comic books since I was 5 or 6 years old. I collected toys. Basically, I didn't really collect toys. I played with toys until I was maybe 16 or 17 years old. My father stopped buying me toys at 15, and so if I wanted to, he said, if you want this, you got to buy yourself. Save my allowance, go to Toys R Us, bought some G.I. Joe figure, and that was cool. My brother ended up taking it, but it is what it is. But like I said, it's a lot. Late 80s to early 90s, I went to college for a while. When I first went to college, there wasn't a lot of places I could buy comic books at. So if I found a store, a gas station, I would walk to that gas station just to find something on a weekly basis, just so I could read it. And then again, of course, you try to go to parties and you try not to collect. I try not to collect a lot of things because you're trying to interact with the females, which I struck out all the time. It happens. It happens. But they said, "Oh, you collect this? Oh, you like a child?" I'm like, see these fingers? That's whatever. But later on, throughout the 90s, I was in and out of school for a hot second because I get tired of school, then I quit for a while, then I go back to it, see how real life was, went right back to it. Then, of course, I fell in love with anime in the late 80s. I fell in love with anime. Of course, I grew up with Robotech and Saber Rider and the Star Sheriffs, Universal Galaxy Rangers, other stuff that was converted like Voltron and stuff. I watched all that. When I went to college, I didn't really have access to a TV to watch anything like that. So all that stuff was put on hold till the summer. Then I collected what I could. Then I went back to school. In case, my collecting has never got to the point where it stopped me from going to school, but that's how it is. After graduating in 98, took me like 8 years to graduate. I was like, now it's time to find a job. Was I collecting action figures then? Nope. I was still collecting comics. And I was playing video games a lot. I was playing video games a lot because I had nothing to do. I tried to search for jobs. Job search went belly up. No prospects. Started drinking a lot. Work and play video games. Then in 2000, I got a job. Yes, Art got a job. First 2 months, moved back home to the Detroit area, trying to navigate my way so I could save enough money to get my car fixed. As soon as I had enough money to get my car fixed, went to Kalamazoo where my car was, my apartment still was, because I was still paying rent there, because I signed a new lease before everything went to crap, But it was kind of neat. Got my car and I started driving. I found a comic book shop and it was heaven. So every week I was collecting comics. Every week. Moved out of my place in Kalamazoo to my mom's house in Detroit. Collected a little bit here and there. Collecting comics. I always collected comics. So then about 2003, I bought a car. My first car I bought. Perfect. Everything was going well. Bought a car. Everything was going well until I goofed up and got busted for drunk driving. Got busted for drunk driving. Okay, so now I had to put a kibosh on the collecting. I couldn't collect comics, really. Now the thing is, I still went to the Comic-Con. Still went to the Comic-Con, but I put a kibosh on because it was too expensive. I couldn't pay those fines. Pay the car note, pay the insurance, pay for all this, whatever I was doing with that, and pay the fine. So I had to put a kibosh on collecting until after that year and a half was over. Then I went back to collecting again. Everything was going well for years. Every now and then I will pick up an action figure. Met this one dude who became one of my best friends, and I wasn't collecting action WWE figures like he was, wrestling figures. I wasn't collecting as I only collected very few here and there, and I found a couple. Some of them I still have today. Still, a lot of them are still in my storage. But I wasn't collecting the hardcore like I am now. But here's the thing. So now met a woman. She saw my comic book collection. The first thing she saw, man, you have all these comic books. Wow. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, cool. So yeah, I said, well, hey, when I'm hanging out with you or doing something, I read. Okay. So she's like, why don't you sell them? I'm like, why would I sell them? Well, you sell them that way you should have a pretty much good nest egg, and that way you could save up to buy, get your own place and stuff like that. And one thing I will tell you, and I will say this, if your significant other complains about your collecting, you should listen. You should listen to it, but she should understand this is what you do. And if she wants you to stop, now if you're like, if you're going way overboard and you're putting yourself in the red, and you're broke all the time, I can understand you putting a kibosh on collecting. But if you still could do everything you can, why not? She wanted me to stop collecting, so I said, okay, I'll stop collecting. Why? Because I'm with this woman. It's not manly to collect stuff like this, so I stopped. So she said, okay, why don't you sell your books? I'm like, how much do you think you get? I said, maybe about $200 or $300. She goes, for all of this? I go, yeah, probably. Of course, I'm lying to her, because I know I got one or two. I know I got good 4 or 5 books that's worth about $500 to $600. I know that, but there's no way to know until I get them graded. So I says, okay. So here's the thing. So let's take this stack of books right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's say 10 books. Let's just say these 10 books. So I said, this is what happened. I could take these, better yet, a short box, which holds about 100 comics. I could take this, I said, I could take this short box, or whatever's in it, I can take it to to a local comic book store, and they'll buy it for $20. And she's like, what? Wouldn't you lose some value on that? I said, yeah, you sell it like that. They're going to say, name a price. I can't say I'll sell it to you for 50. They'll say, we ain't selling it. We ain't buying this. We'll give you 20. And then what happens? They'll take whatever's valuable and they sell it for and they mark it up for a higher price. Well, can't you go through all of them to figure out which is more important? I say, yeah, I could, but that's going to take me some time to figure that out. That's going to take me some time to figure out what's important, what's and then again, if it's important, then I have to grade it. Oh, really? So I said, see, a graded book adds to the value. You take a book, let's say this book right here. It's what, $5? This $5 book. I have to spend a good $20 to $30. I told her $50 just to grade this book. And do you know how much it would have cost to sell this book? I could get this book for, if there's nothing really important about it, $30. And she goes, that's kind of a waste. I go, yeah. Yeah, it is. In order for me to figure it out, there's a book that's going to cost me about $70, $80. Then I had to take all the time to do all that. Okay. But if you want me to do that, or I could just take it to a local stores and say, hey, I want to sell this, and they'll give me $20. I got enough for coffee and a tank of gas. But the reason why, but here's the thing, I was, she doesn't really know, but I was saying that because of the fact that she wanted me to spend the money on her. And when I realized that, I was like, you know what I'll do? I'll stop collecting for you, but I'm not going to sell it quite yet. So she agreed. Then every now and then, when there's a mini comic book show, I went to a comic book show, spending like $100 there. Not a lot, because she was trying to manage my own money, and I was like, wait, whoa, what are you trying to manage my money for? I don't manage your money. And you're blowing your money on all sorts of stuff. Get out of here with that. So a year and a half of that, and after she left me, I was kind of like destituted. Then for the next year or so, I was hanging out with random women. And yes, I know. Trying to fill the void, kind of speak. Don't get it twisted. And what happened was, doing all that, it was basically, I was dating my ex-girlfriend 5 or 6 times. They was all technically the same person. And I was like, man, this is wrong. And in my dark, and technically I fell into a black hole. A literally black hole. And what happened was, in my darkest hour, my super darkest hour, and I was going to therapy too. And my therapist looked at me and he goes, so what do you do for fun? I said, I used to collect comic books and stuff. So, oh, you probably got some good ones too. I go, yeah, I kind of did. So did she wanted you to get rid of them, didn't she? And I go, yeah. Basically, she thought she saw a landmine and she thought she can use it. And look what happened. Let's say, for example, you sold all your stuff for her, and she leaves. What do you have? Nothing. You got to do what makes you feel good. Anything that you do that makes you feel good, do that. Do that. If it makes you feel happy, do that. So, after that meeting, after that session, went to the comic store and blew $300. $300. I just spent $300 at the comic book store, at one of the stores. He looked at me. He goes, "Man, I haven't seen you in a while." I said, "Yeah, I had a girlfriend." And he goes, "Oh, she didn't like you collecting." I'm like, "Oh no." So what happened was that $300, I was basically catching up on my runs that I missed out on. And some things it was too expensive. to me to get. So instead of doing that, I bought graphic novels. That helps me catch up. So I started buying so I thought I would buy graphic novels instead of actual comic books. There, just wait for a graphic novel. That wore off after a while, and I started collecting regular books again. Now, even during that time, I went through another drunk driving incident, and yeah, that was a mess. Dating her at the same time and doing all this other stuff, it was a total mess. But I talked about that ad nauseum years ago. Years ago, I talked about that ad nauseum. If you really want to look at that, go right ahead. But I suggest you don't, because that's at a different time in my life, and I was really screwed in the head, more than normal. Which comes around full circle. Why do I collect? When I buy a comic book and I read it, this gives me the same joy and excitement when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, I was the nerd. I couldn't go on dates with people. So I spent my time reading comic books. These guys were there for me. Even if I had a girlfriend for a hot second, she'll come and leave, but these guys were still there for me. I know it sounds sad, but but keep on with me with that. When I buy something like this is a figure I had when I was a kid, Mud and Junkyard. Me and my brother had this. So when I pick something like this up, especially like a G.I. Joe Classified or a He-Man Masterverse, because I had it when I was a kid and I loved that era. In a way, this is me reliving my childhood. One of the best parts of my life. Now, my childhood wasn't all the best, but this was one of the bright spots. So whenever I get a chance to buy something like this, I do it. Of course, there are some things I never had before. I never had a Son Goku, but I love Dragon Ball. I was in Japan and I collected every book. I watched every show I could get. And of course, no, I didn't watch Dragon Ball Super. For some reason, I just didn't feel like watching it. But this reminds me when I was in Japan, learning Japanese and, reading manga. When I bought this reminds me of spending hours and hours and hours on end playing Street Fighter. So basically, me collecting puts me, like for example, these wrestling figures right over here. Some of these guys I was watching when I was a kid. It brought me great joy. So it's a pleasure for me to collect this stuff. It brings me great joy. It brings me great joy. And believe me, one of the biggest days New Comic Book Day is always on Wednesdays, but I always wait to Saturdays to pick up my book because this is an exciting day for me. I get to do this. I can go to the gym that day. I can go to the gym, work out, put up a sweat, hit the comic book store before I go home, which is right down the street, pick up my books, chat a little bit with that. I might hit a toy store. I might hit another toy store and buy another toy on my way home. And that brings me joy. So basically right now, the reason why I collect, because it brings me joy. I don't do it to say, hey, look at all the stuff I collect. Ha 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 ha. No. Because people have better stuff. I mean, tell you the truth. If you look at some of the YouTubers out there, they got way more than I do. And I don't know how they spend their money doing all that. But to me, doing what I do is kind of expensive. Doing what I do, it's kind of expensive enough as it is. I don't know how they managed to do all that. But I just do it just because. All right? And with that being said, that is why I collect. And and maybe that might shed a little light on a lot of things. Maybe you already know that. But I just had to come. And the reason why I decided to do this video, because my friend who I talked about, for 20. I knew him for 20 some years. He collects wrestling figures and he collects turtles. That's the only thing he collects. His wife was like, "Why do you collect this stuff?" And he's like, "This is connected to my childhood." She goes, "Don't you believe?" I said, "Hey, this reminds me of when I was a kid. All this stuff is reminding." And then what happened? The hilarious part, she goes to toy stores herself to find certain things. I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" "Oh, I like this character." And I was like, "Oh, I see. So you're collecting pieces of the character that you symbolize with to a certain extent." Gotcha. But anyway, thanks very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you like, leave a couple words down below. If you hey, I don't know. That's great. But other than that, thanks very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.